Just gonna check that the audio's in sync. Because we had some issues earlier, but I think we might have solved them. There you go. So I'm using OBS Studio. I've got a camera here and a mic on top. So the audio shouldn't be too bad, but what I'm gonna try and do now is switch to my headset mic and see if that's possibly better. Let's have a look now, just to get an idea. I'm just watching myself right now and figuring out. That didn't seem to do anything. So I'm gonna stick to what we've got now. So, what we've got here, everyone's familiar with, Mario 64. Oh, just a moment. Basically what I'm doing right now is testing the waters and figuring out if this is something I really want to start doing as a bit of a hobby in my evenings instead of playing video games by myself. I can stream online or plan videos ahead and see whatever might be engaging for an audience. What I want to try and do is figure out if I can get the chat section working in OBS Studio, which I had working earlier, but I ruined it somehow. So just give me a moment. But either way, I'll figure it out. Live control panel. It's not quite it. Yeah, that's not working. That's not working. Just a moment, because the live control panel is not working. So I'm gonna have to stream my own stream, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's it. Okay, we're good to go. If there's anyone there, you can feel free to comment away, say hello, and I'll respond to you in time. So Mario 64, the reason I'm choosing to stream this game out of all the games I could possibly stream is because that's a game I'm fairly familiar with. And when I say I'm fairly familiar with, I spent the majority of my childhood playing this game whenever I had any free time, which, being a child, I had a lot of. So it's a very safe bet. I'm using the parallel launcher. I hope it's not too laggy. There's a little bit of a delay. I'm not sure if there's an FPS limit on this or not. Anyway. My first experience with Mario 64 and the Nintendo 64 in and of itself, I was about 5 or 6 years old, I don't want to say. I live in Malta, and Malta usually always gets things last. So you know how people say, oh, you know, it depends on which console generation, right? You'll get, for example, the USA would get things first, then afterwards they'd launch in Japan, or vice versa, depending on the generation. And I'm very sorry, I don't know what the hell is going on with this camera, because it seems to be adjusting itself as it pleases, which is not good, because that's not how we play Mario 64. I'll have to get this fixed, because it's gonna drive me crazy. So, you'd get Japan, America, either or, getting their console launch first. I'm actually playing with this just one-handed, so I can make a point. Europe would then get theirs, or Australia, or whichever, and then lastly we'd be down there at the bottom waiting for whatever new item would launch, if it would launch in our country at all, because in some cases in the beginning we'd actually get most of our electronics in terms of video games, and even up to a point it would make more sense for us to get our stuff direct from another European country. Being that we're in Malta, the one which used to make the most sense was always the UK. Just a moment. And the reason being, they have the same, not just the same electrical output, but they also have the same 3-pin socket, which made things easier for us. So let's say I got Mario 64, me and my brother, when I was about 6 years old. Let's say 1997, 1998. I'd be about 5 to 6. Prior to that, I had a Genesis or Mega Drive. If you're in Europe like me, Genesis if you're in the USA. We also had a Game Gear. I'm sorry for my abysmal playing, but camera's a bit wonky. So I had those. We had also the original Game Boy, the actual brick. We had 2 of those, along with the Game Gear. And the one thing I really remember particularly about the Game Gear, it was an absolute battery hog, to the point where we could only play it after a while plugged into a socket. So we'd have the AC adapter plugged in constantly to play a handheld, and we'd be stuck next to the wall, so there was no other option. Cut to the launch and us getting the Nintendo 64. I remember very, very briefly, very, very vaguely, let's say, getting the Nintendo 64 and this thing being quite a big deal as a console. Now, my older brother, I have 2 brothers, but one of them nearest to me is, let me see if I can get this camera sorted. That's it. No, that's not it. Yeah, I don't know why that's doing that, but I might know, because controller is probably not configured correctly. So my older brother, about 6 years older than me, 6.5, something like that, and I recall one particular memory which is very, very clear to me. God, this camera is ruining everything for me. Anyway, I recall my brother going to school. I was probably off school because I was in one of the very early grades, and I probably didn't have school on that day, and he did. And him specifically telling my mom, not to let me play it on my own. Something to that effect. And basically one of the fondest memories of my childhood, him having gone to school, me being in that time, I think we were sharing a bedroom at the time, and my mum, basically he hid or made my mum hide the massive power brick on the Nintendo 64, and my mum bringing out the power brick and letting me play. I got those, God knows how many hours I got that day, but it was a memory burnt into my subconscious. I never forget it. And it's stuff like that that kind of makes the whole video game thing a whole lot more meaningful because it was ingrained as part of our childhoods, and probably many of you as well can relate in some sort of sense as well. Swarton, it's nice to hear from you. Of course I remember you, and I hope you're doing well as well. Really, I appreciate the comment. I hope you're doing well. This was something completely unexpected, the whole live stream thing, because basically I don't get much time to game anymore. Not especially not Metin, because the time Metin takes, as you know, it's incredible. But from what little time I do have, I thought maybe I could spend it streaming. Maybe I could catch up with some old friends from Metin as well, and we could have a chat as well. You get to an age where you start saying, don't really have that much time to waste anymore. So at least if I'm playing a video game, I can do something productive with it. So for this style, what I always used to do is just use this cannon up high and down. So what we used to do was this, I believe, and this should work. And I should just, yeah. I have a little bit of a delay I'd like to fix. It's not quite 100% correct. Metin was, for me at least, it was the time after I finished secondary school, is what we call it in Malta. So I was 16, and I just started a part-time summer job. I understand you completely, Swart, and the time Metin used to take, looking back, I don't know about you, but there would be days on end where you could easily spend 8+ hour days playing this game, and you'd end up, basically I spent between 16 to 19, almost 20, spending basically what would be considered a 40-hour week on this game, minimum. I'm sure many others could attest, but yeah, I mean, family, work and other stuff, just it has to take priority at the end of the day. And I think one of the reasons why at the end of it I stopped playing Metin, it was a very hard thing to do, because for anyone that's played an MMORPG, and Metin for example, it's addictive as hell. It's basically like a drug. Whenever you're playing it, all you want to do is stay there and continue playing it. And whenever you're not playing it, you also want to get back into the game. And it's really, really unhealthy, especially for kids. At the time, I'm gonna be quite honest with you, I was in school, but I was doing something in school which I didn't want to do. I was in IT, and me and IT, you know, I like it for recreational use. So YouTube, I use it daily. I use it for my office work, but apart from that, I'm not an IT person at all. I can't stand anything to do with IT, so I couldn't. My course at the time was supposed to be in networking. Definitely not something for me at all. And I've completely forgot where the last red coin is. I think I remember, yeah. Just up here. No? God. Can't believe I forgot this. Yeah, Metin is something I wouldn't really want to go back to, honestly. Because it's such a time drain. Private servers for a while were really good fun. The thing with those was, a lot of the times you'd start one and you'd get some which were pretty amazing. You know, they have all the nice kind of features that you want out of a Metin private server, so you'd have a bit of a balance on what they'd call old school server, I think they used to call it, with some added features and making it a bit easier to kind of get gold, leveling up, and they'd have a nice balance. But what would happen a lot of the time, and I don't know if it's still the case, you'd get the server would just close after a week, after a month, and gosh, you're having to start all over again, making that time you spent even worse. Yeah, I get you sorted. The C4, were those the guys from Turkey? I want to say, was it Cobra and I don't remember the others. The only one I remember, I'm not sure if he was from C4, was Cobra. Yeah. Yeah, I played it about the same age as you, I guess. I was between 16 and 19 when I played it. And yeah, I spent a lot of my my savings. I had a bit of money I got from my part-time job in the summer. I spent it there, and that was a big money drain. And to be honest, I'm glad I got out of it when I could. Because yeah, any more time, and arguably we got the best years out of the server that time, between 2008 2011 12. I'd say were the best years. There were, I think it was, the server was started around 2006, but I wasn't there for it obviously, but there were others before us who'd say that probably those were the best times. But then I could never get myself to start, for example, when they launched the Singapore server, met in the whole SG craze, and that was something I was not prepared to do, to start over and then spend even more ridiculous amounts of time and money on another server. I know there are some people which wouldn't spend money, but the counter to that is that you're spending more of your life on the game, which at the point I wasn't prepared to do. So since then I stuck primarily to just regular games. I never got into any other MMOs at all. Because I just didn't want to go down that rabbit hole again. For a while I got into Minecraft, which arguably is one of the best games in terms of value for money. So what we had done actually with Minecraft was very interesting, because there was me and there were 3 or 4, I want to say 3. There was Kutam, a guy named Silvan, These are Maltese people I'm talking about. And what was the other guy? A good friend of mine, Carl. I believe he was also in the server. I'd made, at the time there was multiplay, and you could rent a server for Minecraft. And so we'd have this server and we'd get on, and instead of spending our time in Metin, we'd spend it in Minecraft. And this went on for a year or two, and also we got a lot out of it. Because it's one of those games where you buy it once, then for example if you want to play it single player, you can play it for an eternity, because there's endless amounts of things you can do in the game. But what we did basically was just renting a server on multiplay. And the server, to be honest, I think it was very, 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 very cheap on the whole. I doubt it was any more than perhaps 20 euros a month for the server. I doubt it. And we got a lot of enjoyment out of that, and we also had that multiplayer aspect which we had in Metin, but now we had it in somewhere where there was less pressure. And you know, the thing with Metin is it's always a sense of keeping up with all the other players on the server, all the new items, all the new updates, getting to that certain level, upgrades failing, upgrades succeeding, and there was a lot of pressure in the game. So basically as a kid, gaming, I spent the majority of my childhood playing Nintendo 64. After that we had a PS2, and after that I had a Wii, and then that was kind of the period where I got into Metin. Kotam I haven't spoken to in a while actually, because although we're both Maltese, we don't really talk or meet. Yeah, but about the gold inflation, yes, that was a massive problem towards the end. Just things started costing astronomical amounts of money, where you couldn't really keep up anymore. Unless you were farming for the items yourself, you weren't really getting anywhere in the game. And yeah, I don't know what happened to SG. I don't know if it's still around, or I think Kotam actually was speaking to me very recently, telling me he was still playing in the game. I'm talking like a year or two ago. But no, Lost Ark, I've never heard of it. I don't know. I went back in here. The Penguin Lost. Okay. Yeah, that's not what I want to do. Sorry. Just get out of there. No, Lost Ark I've never heard of. Yeah, League of Legends obviously was quite popular for a while. I haven't really heard much about it. In terms of, for example, YouTube, what I like watching is anything gaming related, and with things that I can relate to. So I can relate to games from my childhood, which would be Nintendo 64 era, PlayStation 2, you know, that kind of thing. And if I can remember, there should be a way. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. So one of the YouTubers I do enjoy watching is Happy Console Gamer. If you've ever heard of him, it's a guy named Johnny. Super Mario World we never had, because that was on the SNES, and we never had a SNES. So I grew up with this. I grew up with the Game Boy Super Mario games. So we had Super Mario and the 6 Golden Coins, Super Mario Land on the Game Boy. There might have been others, but those are the ones I remember. Tetris, obviously. But in terms of, we're talking Nintendo of that era, on the 64, after we got Mario 64, we got Mario Kart 64, which at the time me and my brother let's say spent a lot of hours on. But yeah, and the whole gaming thing has changed so much from when I was a kid. I mean, I would have never imagined, for example, them taking Mario 64 and then doing all these kind of hacks and adjustments with them. It's something I could never imagine. Game Boy, yeah. Game Boy, getting to Pokemon, my first experience with it was, so I want to say it was Pokemon Stadium 2 on the 64, which I had. At the time, when I was in school, I had a friend in school called Timothy. And Timothy had a copy of Gold, and I think a copy of Silver, which he sold me. At the time I bought it for 5 Maltese pounds, which would be about 12 or 13 euro, something of the sort. And I think one of those was my first experience. I didn't have a Game Boy Color. I had a Game Boy Pocket at the time, and I'm pretty sure he had sold me his Pokemon Silver. But yeah, after touching Pokemon for the first time when I was like what, 9, 10, something like that. Then my next kind of gaming craze was Pokemon on the Game Boy Advance. On the Game Boy Advance, I went absolutely crazy for it. I've had, Sapphire, Emerald, hundreds of hours. I'd say between those games I had an easy 700-800 hours, no joke. At the time I was 12, 13, 14, that kind of age. But yeah, but the esports and these treasure box systems, it puts me off wanting to try any of these games, because I know they're gonna be a money pit to give me the content that's in it. So for example, FIFA, for example, I wouldn't consider a FIFA game today, because just the temptation of taking part and saying, I don't really know the game that well, but I know there's these cards or players or loot boxes they call them. I don't ever want to get to the point where I feel pressured and say, oh, I'll just get it this one time, and then another time I'll just get it this one extra time and no more, because it just keeps going and going and going. And it's, I feel worst of all for kids, because we had an easier time growing up with video games that weren't so predatory. The games we had in our childhoods you buy the game, plug it in, put it in your PS2, even the PS3 and the Wii, and there were no add-ons to buy. You just had the game, you put it in, you play it. No updates, nothing. But these days, I think the way companies are, it's way too predatory. Like, I don't have children yet, but I'd be very hesitant with my kids in getting them a brand new console and certain games, because there's that kind of dopamine hit when you get into such a kind of system. Yep, exactly. There'd be games you'd get hundreds of hours out of them, and now it's just, you really need to pick your games very closely. Now that's interesting, sorted. Yeah, I can imagine all the kinds of things you have to deal with kids these days, because we never had it so complicated. We had our, our little challenges here and there, but the stuff kids have to face now, and the peer pressure, I can only imagine. Like, every kid has to have a phone, every kid has to have this thing and this thing, and I couldn't imagine being a kid nowadays. Even with social media, it must be overwhelming for them. And I can kind of say, I don't doubt that there's many kids with attention disorders, and I don't blame them. I don't think there's anything wrong with the kids. I think there's something wrong with the way the world is being presented to them. They're just being given way too much information and pressure, and having to keep up with everything. I mean, at the time when we were kids, at least I can speak for myself, we had basically TV, so we had cable TV, so we'd have cartoons and whatever. For me it was basically cartoons, I didn't really watch anything else. Video games, maybe going out. We didn't have phones till we were, I want to say 13, when the whole phone thing started becoming a thing, 12, 13. So we had kind of a nice balance between not having too much, but then again we had everything we could ever want. Then with the advent of the internet coming in, and things slowly started progressing really, really fast. Now I'm gonna be honest, I don't know where the last red coin is. Yep. I had for a while I had a flip phone between 13 and 16. So that would be 2005 till 2008, something like that. Then when I was 16, I had a kind of a smartphone, not exactly, but you could take videos, you could take pictures, you could listen to music, Bluetooth and everything. But yeah. And the thing with the peer pressure for kids, and them having to try and keep up with other kids, it's also pressure on the parents. And do you give in, do you not give in? Yeah, it's not easy. I'm not a parent myself, so these things do cross my mind sometimes, like when I have kids, how I'm gonna deal with these kind of issues, because at the end of it, I think the point of having kids is that they have a better childhood, if possible, than you had. Yeah. It's a good learning experience. At least you get to learn a bit about about kids these days, and I think this is probably the generation where there's the most difference from the previous one. So for example, our generation to the one before, we were the generation where kids started staying more inside, playing video games, watching cartoons and all sorts, then on the computer and all that as well. And now this generation is something completely different. I don't know if I'm in the correct area. I can't fix this camera. Let's try. There we go. I think the audio's alright now. Everything should be syncing up. Yeah, I think these days you almost have to shelter your children, kind of, because there's so much. You don't want to kind of interfere with their development too much. Don't know if that's the right way of thinking about it. Yeah. I guess it also depends what country you're from. I guess that makes a big difference. I'd say maybe, yeah, the last couple of generations had a more sheltered upbringing than our parents. Yeah, I can imagine so. Probably a small village is the best place to be. I don't know if I'm wrong in that. I don't have any experience, because Malta is such a small island that living in a village or a town or doesn't really make much difference, because you can get from one side to the other in an hour or so. Yeah. I was in Germany just last January, because I was there on some business, and when I go from Malta to somewhere like Germany, I start to appreciate what we don't have in our country, because our country is very small. There's literally nowhere to go. You can get from one side to the other in about an hour. So you can imagine, basically we've been everywhere hundreds of times. There's no mystery to the country. But when you go to somewhere like Germany, it's so vast and there's more to see, more to do. I was in Cologne. I was in Cologne, then I had some business elsewhere. I forgot where it was on business. I'll tell you where. So I was in Cologne for a couple of days, and yeah, then I went to another town called Melle. I think it was in the northern area. Yep. Yeah, I was in Melle just for a couple of hours, just on some business, and then I went back to Cologne. But yeah, lovely country, and the fact that you don't have our massive heat waves for the few months of summer. At the moment we're kind of in a heat wave. It's a bit unbearable. Air conditioning, yep. I've got the aircon on at the moment because otherwise I'd be dead. You just see a sweaty mess on the screen. Let's see, temperature at the moment in the evening is about 27 degrees. During the day I want to say it's between 35, 40. 35 would be normal summer, 40 plus is a heat wave. But yeah, I actually got to see some snow while I was in Germany, which for me was a nice thing because I've never been in snow. Anytime I've been abroad I never got the chance to be in snowy conditions. There we go. So just do that. Oof, I messed up. I'd say your summer will probably be not too far off ours, but I think your summer would be shorter than ours. Yes. Yes, the social changes. I agree with you there. Definitely. I'm yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think socially, yeah, it's hard to yeah. I think a lot of us were like that. I could say for myself, I was a stupid teenager. I was really a stupid teenager. Hello, Mr. Sainel. And yeah, sorry about this. Something's wrong with the camera. All right. I'm very sorry about the camera. Yes, it is the job requirement. No, what I can say for myself, I'm still always learning, even now. I think everyone can say the same thing. And I don't know what's wrong with my camera on this, because it's switching all the time on its own, so I can't really I can't really figure this out. I'll just go to another level where the camera won't mess me up too much. But yeah, I was a dumb teenager. I think it took me a good while to grow out of it. But yeah, I think for me, if I had kids, if I had to do something which would be maybe to be a bit more hands-off and giving them the space they need to grow and to learn, but at the same time also being there for them when they need it. I think that's very key. Because I think too many parents are hands off with their parenting. When I do another stream, I need to figure out how to fix this control setup, because for some reason it's just switching the camera around for me, and I don't know what the reason is. Oops. Better be careful. Hi Zerk, yep, I am streaming. I'm just giving it a go. I don't think I'll continue streaming on this channel. I made another channel, rynaqui Gaming, and I might do on my future streams on there. But I obviously want to see how things go here, if I'm any good at it, you know, if I'm sociable enough, if I can keep a conversation going or not, because obviously I don't want any of my streamers to be bored to death. At the end of the time, you're wasting your time watching my stream, so I need to make sure it's interesting. No method content, unfortunately, because it's too time consuming. I'd love to if I had the time, but I don't have the time for it. I might have an hour or two an evening here and there for streaming. Apart from that, no. And Metin is one of those games which requires way too many hours, and I'm really out of the loop with Metin. No, I'd love to otherwise, but it's not something I can do, unfortunately, because I have a very busy schedule. I work practically every day, and sometimes even Sundays, so I don't really have that amount of time anymore. Apart from Mario 64, eventually I'd like to stream a couple of other games, so I'll start streaming on my other channel. I'd like to do... oh god, this camera is ruining me. And I'm not gonna try fix it on stream, because that would kind of interfere with the stream. I plan to do some Minecraft, because Minecraft's a game I really like. So that's okay. I might also stream some other Nintendo 64 games. So from when I was young, a couple of games I used to play were Star Fox 64, Diddy Kong Racing, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Banjo-Kazooie, a couple of other Nintendo games. I used to be a crazy Pokemon guy. Thank you, Zerk, I appreciate it. For the next one, I'm not sure if I'll do it on here, so I don't know if you'll manage to see it or not. It will be on another channel. I've made a post about it on the channel a couple of days ago. Could be more than a week ago, actually, when I made the post. So just in case you don't see anything on here, I've got another channel. I'll try to make another announcement as well. It's called rynaqui Gaming. But also, if you have any suggestions, if you think the audio needs improving or anything, I'm always open to suggestions, because I'm very new to this. This is my first time ever streaming anything. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. So in terms of video game content, I do follow quite a lot of content daily. So what I'll be doing is, when I'm working, I have earphones on pretty much daily, and I'll keep a playlist going of all kinds of gaming content. Oh god. So I like keeping up to date with those sorts of things. So I follow speedrunning. I don't know how to speedrun, but I like keeping up to date if anyone's broken a record, and you know, that's interesting. I mean, it's interesting to see all these games still getting so much attention years later. Like, I know, for example, this star, there's a way where they clip into it from above, but I have no idea how to do it myself, so I'm not gonna even try. Hey bruh, I saw you commenting earlier. Thank you for coming back. Yep, we got it. Are you also from Metin 2 as well? I collected the wrong star. For some reason, when I was a child, I had a lot of trouble with this one. So what I plan to do with this stream, eventually I'll move it onto the next channel, because I kind of want to keep this channel just as a kind of, just to catalogue all the old Metin videos and make sure they don't get lost, and just leave the channel kind of on its own and just do something else on the other channel. Yeah, there were things I used to struggle with when I was young. Though, to be fair, I was playing it when I was around 6-7 years old. And to be fair, 3D gaming at the time was very new. This obviously being one of the first. Because at the time, I had a Game Gear, if anyone's familiar with that. And I had a Game Boy, and so all the games I used to play were 2D. And that mystery of playing that first 3D game, yeah, that stays with you forever. There we go. Yeah, the thing when they funny you should say that. The first time, obviously, where they got the technology to be able to make a 3D game, like case in point, Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Country looked amazing and still looks amazing, but then when you get the first and actually the only Donkey Kong 64, didn't look anywhere near as good as that. The artwork on Donkey Kong Country was just so much better. Oh god. So what I think is happening, I didn't set up my controller, and my analog stick is not only moving Mario, but it's also moving the camera. This is not ideal. It's painful. And it's my fault for not setting it up. But yeah, 2D gaming for a while was... I mean, for me, all I had was a Game Gear and the Game Boy, but hours and hours and hours of fun. And actually, when I got my Game Boy Advance, that was probably one of the consoles where I spent the most amount of time on. I'm talking 1,000 hours plus. I've never heard of Stronghold. Is that something like yeah, like you said, like Age of Empires? For me, for example, as you're saying, I quite like the Age of Empires 2. But then when it gets to the 3, I had it once. I think I still have it on Steam, but it just doesn't compare. There's no comparison. God, this camera. Oh my god. Oh. Yeah, 2 was definitely the best. Funny story. When I was in, let's say, college. It wasn't college, we call it something different in Malta. It was like a college for sciences and that kind of thing. So I was in networking, and everyone had a PC. We used to just have LAN parties all the time. Counter-Strike, Age of Empires 2, always. Always, always, always. For us there was nothing else. And we were in a school where basically the teachers didn't really give a shit whether we were paying attention or not. So the majority of the time, oh sorry, this camera is killing me. So basically the majority of the time, these the teachers wouldn't care whether we were paying attention or not. None whatsoever. And I don't know where the controller options are at all, so I don't think I'm gonna be able to fix this. And we just have LAN parties all the time, and this is embarrassing. There you go. Oof. Okay. Funny story about Counter-Strike. Was first time I tried playing it in the LAN. Hi PLVM. Yep, no problem. I tell you what, send me a private. Are there private messages on YouTube now? Tell you what, find my Facebook page, send me a message on there, and I'll be able to respond to it. If you're gonna be in Malta in August, feel free, get in touch. It's not a problem at all. And I don't know if it was 20 stars or what. Alright. Yeah, feel free, don't worry. I'm very, very busy, but depending on the day, I'll find some time off. I can also tell you where I work. If you wanna pass by there. If you're renting a car, it makes things easier, because getting around in Malta, the thing with Malta is traffic has increased exponentially over the past few years, so getting around isn't the easiest thing. And at the moment, August is kind of like peak season for tourists. And again, I'm sorry I'm playing so terribly, but I can't really fix the camera, and the camera just does whatever it wants at the moment. Thank you, Swarton, I really appreciate it. If I'm ever streaming and you see the notification, feel free, stop by and we can have a chat again. It was a pleasure hearing from you again. I hope you're doing well. And take care, buddy. So, I don't know who else is left here. I'm gonna be ending the stream over here, because I need to really fix the camera issue for the next time, because it's a disaster. Basically, one of the next streams I'd like to do eventually. Yes, if you have some plans for sightseeing, and if there's anything you need to book in advance, for example, if you're gonna go on a boat cruise or anything, try and book them beforehand, and avoid queues if you can, because at this time of year in Malta it's very, very, very hot, and August is normally the worst. It's very dry, and it's super crowded because of all the tourists. So yeah, if you can get anything done in terms of bookings beforehand, I'd suggest you do that. Feel free to get in touch on my Facebook. No worries at all. Eventually I'm gonna plan on streaming a particular ROM hack of B3313 on Mario 64, and basically the concept of it is that they took Mario 64 and they made it in a sense that it will react to kind of what decisions you make and where you go, and it's very expansive, it's huge. And I haven't started playing it on purpose because I want to do it blind, so that you can see my my reaction to Mario 64 in a way that I've never seen it before, because I've played this game many times. It might not show because I was terrible today, but I've got the camera setting, which is, so basically when I'm moving it's adjusting the camera for me, which shouldn't be the case. So it's a setting issue which I'll fix for the next time for sure. So if you want to watch my next stream, it's gonna be rynaqui Gaming. So my account, so as you know, metin2.us ended, and we migrated everything to metin2.sg Singapore. I don't know if Singapore is still around or not, but I gave it to a good friend of mine, Kutam, or Kutakwi. He's a guy named Manuel, and he's got my account now, so the account is with him. He's got all my stuff. I don't really follow what's happening with it or anything, so as far as I know, he's still got it. I don't know if he still plays with it or whatever. I know he has access to all my gear and everything, obviously. At some point I'll get in touch with him to see how he's doing and if everything's still going well. I don't know, actually. Yep, metin2sg seems to be online still, because I'm just taking a look now. I don't know if I can. Yep, I can do that. And yeah, I don't know. This is their ranking page. What I'm gonna do actually is turn off Mario 64. Yes, same here. There were some good memories from back then. Yeah, it was a great time. I wonder if my character... No, it's not here. Yeah, they're not here, I thought. Could be they're not here because... Whoa. That makes more sense. It's probably I'm not high enough a level to come up. Come up in the search. Like the last time I remember playing the game. God. I know towards the end it was up to level 99, was it? My memory is very foggy on this. I can't really remember. No, don't do that. It's interesting. Yeah, I haven't been on here in ages. I wonder, is it still active? Doesn't look very active, hey, does it? In fact, if we look... Well, these are announcements. Forums. You know. Yeah, the game looks... Like if you see the posts here on the forum. Yeah, look at that. Members online. Yeah, there's a couple of members on Discord. What I remember from metin2.us, the guy who started SG used to be a player on metin2.us, and I recall the reason he was planning to start SG was because of hackers that were on the on the server. I can't remember his name. So I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I can't remember his name. Yeah. So I'm gonna end my stream here. To everyone who's watched, thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting if you've commented. I'll see you on Rynaqui Gaming if you happen to find me interesting or the potential content interesting. And I'm also always welcome to chats. If you ever want to comment and converse with me directly, you can as well. So I'll figure out how to end the stream and bid you all a good night. Take care, my friend.